What's happening, everyone? Art at Patience Metal Fab, and I want to welcome you back to another episode on our S13 240. Now, we've taken a small break on this car because I was in Japan for a few weeks. Then when I came back, we had an open house, and then a bunch of other little projects that we were filming and editing and putting out videos for. So you've seen our YouTube page grow over the last couple of weeks. We've definitely been busy. But now it's time to get back to work on the S13. The next step is we got to get it out to the blasters to get all the surface rust off the inside. You remember I redid all the panels that were removable, but we have to do the cage and the interior of the car, which means we sourced a rotisserie. Now we got to pull all the drivetrain, engine, all the components out of the car we don't want blasted and send it off. So Brian is getting the forklift ready, and we're going to get right back to work on that thing. Brian is going to go unpack that rotisserie, and we'll be over there in just a second. But I figured since I'm on the other side of the shop, I'd give you guys a little bit of an update on the cars that we have in right now. We've got this yellow BMW M3 that's getting a lot of rust repair done. You can see all the panels that we've already redone. This is really a sentimental kind of passion project for the owner. So we've had that for a couple of weeks, and we've essentially cut out all of the cancer out of that car and are hopefully building it up to better than new. We've got this Camaro over here that is awesome. We've done a lot to this car in the past, including the side exhaust, which is super cool. If you guys haven't seen it already, I will be posting on Instagram with some clips of that thing idling and revving and maybe even driving down the road. That thing is a monster. We've got this Subaru, speaking of monsters, with giant wheels on it. This is a drag car, and right now it's engineless because the EJ that was in here blew up probably a dozen times before this owner decided to go with a twin turbo LS setup. So that's what's going in, and we're going to be doing a little bit of engine bay tweaking to facilitate that swap. We've also got our wide body Focus. This is kind of a long-term build, so we're plugging away at it. A lot of rear end work to get this rear radiator setup done. Some exciting stuff happening. We just finished Lexan windows in this, and the engineers are going to be working away on a ducting system for this. The 2J swapped RX-7 is in a little bit of a hold pattern right now because we're waiting on some parts, but we are going to be getting to work on that soon. So eventually, you guys will be seeing that thing drive out of here. This is a really exciting car that we just got in. It's a Porsche, essentially off-road build, and we've got some surprises coming for this one, so I can't get into it, but you guys can at least see how cool this thing is. Another big project we were working on is this Mark 7 Volkswagen, and this one got a full cage, race tech seats, a lot of custom stuff by us. You can see our logo, and this is going to be heading off relatively soon here for a lot of other work, and then eventually end up at SEMA this year. So that's going to be really cool to have our name represented at SEMA. It wouldn't be the first time, but certainly we're always proud of having our stuff get to the show. Then we've got this BMW motorcycle hanging out right here. We did some small things like foot pedal and kickstand modifications, but it's always nice to mix things up and get a vehicle in that we don't normally work on. So gorgeous motorcycle here. And you guys might have never seen the Novum car in its totality. So we've got it all put together for the open house. I will probably be doing a breakdown video on this, so we won't go super in depth now, but this is an incredible car and it deserves its own little video on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. Another car that's been getting a ton of attention is this VR6 swap GTI. You can see the engine is in, and DJ has been fabricating a lot of things for this, the turbo setup, the intercooler setup, so a lot of things happening. I'll show you just a small taste of the type of attention that we're giving this build. You can see the firewall is actually a tailgate out of Volkswagen, so that looks really cool. And then the strut bar was custom fabricated by us and is just one of the standout pieces amongst a bunch of other really cool stuff. So again, this one is getting a ton of attention, and we'll show you some more footage of it as it builds along. And of course, we've got the S13 that's kind of been sitting in limbo for the last 2 to 3 weeks. But what the game plan is to pull this engine out, pull the drivetrain out, all the components we don't want blasted, get it on this rotisserie, which will involve making some custom plates for the front. And then we're gonna be transporting it out of here, coming back as clean as it was about 2 years ago before all this rust took over. The rotisserie we got from Summit Racing came all pre-assembled minus the casters, so we're just gonna tip these over, put the casters on, and make them a little bit more mobile so they're not scratching up the floor. If you're not familiar with what a rotisserie is, it's essentially 2 large pieces. There's a jack right here, and then its structure or frame, and this is gonna go on the rear and the front of the car. We can lift up the chassis and rotate it 360 degrees. That way, not only can our blaster really get in underneath the car, inside the car, wherever he needs, but for painting, for fabrication work, for really anything, it gives you access to the entirety of the car.
Alright, so here we got our lovely Summit Racing rotisserie. What's nice about the rear of this is it's going to be pretty easy to fixture, as we'll get some round tubing for the ID of this diameter, and then we'll integrate that within the square tube here for a pretty seamless connection in the rear of the vehicle. The front will be a little bit more challenging, but we'll start with the easiest stuff first. All right, now that the easy part is done, we're on to the hard part. Based on the way that the front rails were cut during shipping, it's a little farther back than we'd like. So what we're going to have to do to incorporate the square tube from the rotisserie to this is cut this straight and basically build a nut plate that is going to allow us to not only bolt the tube front end on that we're designing, but also the rotisserie as well. So in doing that, we're gonna have to remove the engine first, drop the subframe to really get a good square cut on this front rail. We'll plate it with either 2 or 4 welded nuts on the back side, and then from there we can design a temporary intermediate fixture to tie into the rotisserie.
I can't believe how long this whole assembly is. You have an inline 6 with an all-wheel drive transmission transfer case. This is crazy considering I'm used to Subarus, which are almost half this length. But taking it out was pretty easy because it was mostly unbolted. Brian just had to pull drive shaft off, and then engine mount, transmission mount, and it just came right out. So it helps to not have the front end of the car.
Next step is to separate the engine from the trans. We'll put the engine on the stand as we have to do an extended oil sump modification. And then the next step from there will be to get the vehicle on the 2-post lift so we can assemble the rotisserie.
Brian and Ben have spent a lot of time today getting this rotisserie to mount to the vehicle. Obviously the whole thing is universal, it's pre-assembled, but it's not quite as easy as just bolting it to the car. So they've had to fabricate some mounts to be able to safely join the car to the rotisserie. The back is all done and the front is pretty much there. Basically what we needed to do was make some brackets, this cross beam, and then we're gonna have a couple of pieces of square tube that come off of it. You saw them just getting notched. We need to do a little bit more modification, and then eventually they're gonna slot right into the arm here, and we're gonna be able to get this car in the air and actually rotate it. Now, I have a feeling this episode's getting pretty long, so I think I'm gonna cut it off here, and we'll start the next episode next week, probably, with this thing in the air, and then going off to the blaster, eventually coming back all clean, and us putting the coating on so it doesn't re-rust, and we don't have to repeat this in the future. If you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to our page, and all you have to do is stay tuned for more of this awesome content. Obviously, we've got a lot of videos on the S13 coming, but we've got a shop full of really cool projects that we're getting to, so there's only cool stuff coming your way if you follow the channel. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.